Hey, everybody, this is Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols talking to you about tactical fitness. And this is a tactical fitness report. And this is our part 3 of a series Jeff and I have done. This is actually our 4th video now. We did a 1 introduction. Our first part of this series was getting to the training, which is, if you check it out, you'll see what that means. We had a great one, which I probably think it was our best one yet, was getting through the training, because there's a lot of different issues involved with getting through whatever training you're trying to do. And now there is the third part of tactical fitness, which is what happens once you're through the training and now you are an active duty operator. And this is specifically, we're going to be talking more about the SEAL community. However, it is getting more popular in the tactical fitness world, in the active duty world, whether you're SWAT team, regular military, Rangers, SF, all those guys are now having strength trainers in their program, and it's a new program. And let Jeff talk a little bit about it, but he was very involved with the creation and the evolution of going from what I endured as in the 90s, and before that was in the 80s. It was just a bunch of group PT that we would do, and usually the training department ran the PTs, and it was probably the best in shape guy at the team, and you did whatever he was really good at. If it was running, you ran a lot. If it was triathlons, you started doing like triathlon type training. Did a lot of PT, tons of reps, crazy repetitions, and there was no lifting involved. If you lifted in the teams in my day, you lifted at the end of the day on top of all that. So, you wonder why we were a little bit banged up. Probably by the time you came in, you probably heard all the horror stories of all the injuries that we were all enduring and going through. And I know my personal story. By the time I was 30, I had something going on every limb. I had ankle. Bunch of ankle sprains, a dislocation on my ankle. That was more traumatic type injury. Had stress fracture in my femur, had a lower back injury. I had a separated shoulder. I had one limb. My right limb was not hurt. That's pretty much it. So, tendonitis, shin splints, you name it, all that stuff happened. So that was my story. And now Jeff came along, and he has a different generation of warrior that has been created since the post 9/11 world, and they really got smart. And let Jeff talk about that, because it's genius what they've done. I wish they could have done this 20 years before.
Yeah, this can be a really long segment, so I'm going to really do my best to abbreviate. So about 2009 or so, give or take, depends on who wants to take credit for, and it's not really about that, but there has been this oversight for non-combat related injuries, especially when we were fully involved into two spaces, Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of people were getting hurt, and really just the lack of durability. So one of my taskings, because as a background in exercise physiology before even coming in, I remember being on deployment and wrote this big sort of Jerry Maguire's manifesto of like how we needed to do things better. It started working its way up the chain of command. It got to the point where we got funding for it in terms of hiring professionals, physiologists, strength coach, dietitians, sports psychologists. And now all those individuals are spec war across the board for Army, for Air Force, for Navy, and Marine Corps. It is now spreading into conventional Army as well. That is literally happening right now, and I'm teaching at those locations to train the trainer. It's just kind of how we were explaining, like, when the troop commander, for lack of a better term, like in an Army unit, 10th Mountain or wherever it is, if their troop commander is a runner, they run. If they triathlon, they do that. If they swim. And so that what they're doing is implementing at each unit now strength coaches, dietitians, sports psychologists, PTs, ATC, athletic trainers, and those sort of things as like a high-performance team.
Yes.
Modeled after what SOCOM, Spec War, has been doing now since depending on, they kind of got established in different timelines just because it's a big moving machine. SOCOM is pretty small, but it's quite large. So without really divulging too much information, what they've done is just really started taking a look at not just train harder, train smarter, and treating the SEALs and any other components of SOCOM like injured athletes, okay, because we got to get them back out to perform, and we got to get them healing, we got them recovered, post-surgical, all that. It's really well thought out. It's not, now there is some oversight of active duty, like the commanding officers and everything definitely have oversight of how that happens, but the people making decisions how to implement these programs and so forth are the civilians. Right. And I was the only active duty at the time, because of my background, like infused in that civilian population. I actually sat on many of the hirings just because that was my profession, and I was able to fortunately give advice and like, hey, this person's got some experience, this person's lacking it, hey, I think this person would fit good in the community and so forth. And that was in about 2009. And it really has helped. I mean, the goal was, again, as a strength coach, as a CSCS, primary mission for us as strength coaches is to limit non-contact injury in sport. Yeah. That same job is to limit non-contact, non-PT, non-combat injuries for our military, and they have done across the board for the Army, the Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force have done a really great job of doing that. And it's by hook or by crook, it's shying away from that traditional just PT till it hurts. Yeah. Now there is, just understand, there is a historical component that the teams need, right? Those gut checks, we need them. But I always say what gets you to the community is not necessarily what is going to keep you there physically. We need to get there. Yeah. Yep. And then we need to refine. It's no different than shooting, or it's a skill acquisition at that point. And maybe someone gets hurt and they kind of fall out. They get out of shape, for lack of a better term. But it really is precise because our military, specifically special forces groups, we're outliers. Like, well, all the years that we were broken, we're still going to go do it. Yeah. Healed or not, we're still going to go do it. So now it's like, how do we take these individuals that are going to endure, heal them, recover them, get them training smarter? And it's taken some time for sure, but it certainly has evolved, and it's beyond calisthenics. It's beyond just the run, swim, run. It's beyond all that. It's evaluation as an individual, just like in sport. Write a program based off of their needs of the job and the capability of the individual. Yes. So there's a big evolution that's happening, and it's really pretty cool to be a part of it and to see it still.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when they came up with the term tactical fitness. It was right around that same time, 2007, 2008, I think, from the National Strength and Conditioning Association, Mark Stevenson, who's great. I think he's probably one of the pioneers in using that term.
Yeah, he's the originator. I mean, he had a team. Yeah. So he has been hired now. Him and a couple guys are still around within the SOCOM community and running it all. And that's who I worked under for a number of years. And it's been really, really, that's what I say. I'm not a byproduct of the people I've trained. I'm a byproduct of the people I've learned under. Yes. He was one of those people that mentored me, and still to this day I communicate with. And it's been one of the biggest things that I've learned from him, among many things, and then that's where I think that I want people, and that's why you and I started doing this, really, is that, we're so emotional, and so many people want to get into spec war and a SEAL and all those sort of things, but it's sometimes very difficult for us to be critical and objective. Yeah. Like, okay, well, I need to evaluate this, and like, why am I doing this? And I think that that's what we're trying to do here. Is Mark taught me, like, hey, listen, question everything. Just question, like, not in the sense of being disrespectful, but like, okay, like, you want me to do this program, but why? What's the goal? What's the end state? What's the process? If this doesn't work, what can I substitute it with? And that's what real professionals will do, because that's what the SEAL community does. On a tactical environment, like, hey, I ran into this roadblock. What do? Well, I got to figure out a different way. It's not just like, well, blindly just fix bayonets and cherry pick that hill. Right. So long or the short is that I want people to be, even of my programming, like be critical of it. I can defend it, not for the sense of ego, but like there's a why I'm doing it, but there's all, like you said, it all depends.
Yeah, absolutely. It does depend. And, I tend to write generic programs. That's what books are. That's what articles are. I expect people to say, well, this is my background. Does this apply to me?
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? It probably doesn't. You need to probably lift more weights over here instead of focusing on running and calisthenics. You need to do more calisthenics and running than lifting more weights. Once again, it depends. But this new active duty training program that we have, and like I said, this is kind of the evolution of tactical fitness. And if you think about it, everybody's familiar with the term tactical to practical. This was just the opposite. This was practical to tactical. And what we did is you basically took all the things that athletics has been great at doing, and that's creating a strong body to endure abusive sports, right? And, come out stronger and being able to, have a program to preseason, postseason, during the season, all those type of periodization type programming. And it's a good way of taking what the once again, like the high school athletic program. In my day, and I grew up in high school in the 80s, we had more coaches, athletic trainers, you name it, physical therapists, chiropractors. We had all those guys on a high school football team. And then when I got to the SEAL teams, there was none of that.
Right.
It did not exist. So I had more like background and experience and support for my athletic abilities in high school than I did in the SEAL teams in the early 90s.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that, here's the conundrum is that, and I make this generalization. So, use a perfect example. Like in that high school environment, the shortfall was probably, again, you have the assets. The shortfall may have been the number of athletes, right? That to get dominance, we'll call it. You move to college, money's not an issue typically.
Right.
Coaching staff is typically pretty good, and you have more athletes, so there's less of an issue. But you go to pro sports, it evolves. Now you get to the SEAL community, money wasn't an issue. Knowledge was the issue.
Yeah.
The people are the best people in the world to give this information. So there's always kind of this, like, well, the haves and have-nots. Well, now that special forces community is now lacking all excuses. It's got the money, it's got the people, it's got the professionals in place. And now you're trying to generate this perfect storm. And the shortfall then is, in my opinion, there is a constant revolving door of leadership on the senior enlisted and officer that, like, it's not bad, but that's the nature of the military, trying to get continuity over a 10-year period when every 2 or 3 years there's senior leadership switching out going, well, hey, or we're in the state of we're in conflict and we're not, and like, what's the order of priority? Because the mission has to be first, I believe that. So how do we marry up that we need to get him better, but in 2 years this master chief or this captain's going to rotate out and go, well, hey, we need more skydiving or more, like, it gets prioritized differently. But that's always going to exist, especially in the military, because a civilian is never going to run a military unit.
Right.
That would defeat the entire purpose. Yeah. But I think that it's certainly on track.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really cool to see.
I'm so impressed with it. I try to get as much as I can, and that's why I like the tactical strength and conditioning conferences that we go to.
Right.
And you guys got to Google those things and find out where they are, because what you find there are the people that are running all the different programs within the tactical community. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, FBI, firefighters. You got SWAT teams. I think you had HRT there a couple times. I mean, you got everybody that are running tactical fitness programming there, showing and sharing their information with a crowd of eager listeners. And, I get way more out of those conferences than I give.
Yeah. This year, the TSAT conference, in terms of speakers, because you and I get invited, but the people that you submit an application, right, to go speak at it,
right,
it surpassed this year than the national conference.
I heard.
I guess in July.
I heard.
So I think next year they're deciding between it's either be Dallas or LA. I think they're leaning towards Dallas. But the following year it's at the Hilton on 31st Street here in Virginia Beach.
Oh, nice.
So it's right in my backyard, which is cool. But that's a lot because of the East Coast is tactical dominant, right? Because where you're at, right, you have Quantico, you have Fort, the big Army base, not Fort Eustis.
You got Fort Meade. Yeah, Fort Meade, NSA.
Everything here.
DC.
And then you have South Bragg, and then you have Fort Lejeune. So in a 200-mile radius, you have pretty much all of SOCOM.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so it's I agree, and that right there I think is why there's continuity, is because the governing body for strength and conditioning for professional and amateur sport, i.e. pro teams and colleges, is the NSCA. The NSCA is kind of holding that torch where that's where everyone accumulates, all the tactical professionals accumulate and share, rather than coming up with their own, like, well, this is my niche and my niche. And that's what we're combating here, is because people still think that tactical strength and conditioning or tactical fitness or anything tactical with training is randomized. And it's not. It's really, and even got people on the range doing silly stuff. It's like, the textbook that is followed in our community is day 1, week 1, learn this. Day 1, week 2, learn this. And it is absolutely by the round counted. Yeah. And it doesn't involve barrel rolls and combat and this and swinging kettlebells and all these sort of silliness you see. It's precise. It's really, really precise. And people hide behind the idea that it needs to be this aggressive sort of macho. No, you don't learn, you don't acquire skill that way at all. You don't acquire skill that way, finite skill. You don't optimally just randomizing training and just doing big, right? If that were the case, there would be nothing special about the Special Forces community.
True.
It just would be, anyway, so off my soapbox, I think that I think that's the hope for all of us, is that if we can approach training while you're in very systematically, and in a lot of it, the tactical operational is kind of random because you have humans you're dealing with. Bad people making terrible decisions that are centered around fear and aggression. Well, BUDS is not that. It's precise. It's calculated. It's programmed. In terms of what their expectations are. You have to run this, swim this, pull this, push this, sit up this. And in training, you have to be able to swim this and run this and all these sort of things. It's the only time, one of the only times in our careers that you and I were able to say, hey, here's a training event to train for. And now we get in active duty. We don't have that necessarily, that training event and dates. So we have to be not the opposite. We don't want to be more randomized about it. We really have to further evaluate what the needs of that person are. Yeah. Become more random. It has to, it's kind of counterintuitive to some, like, well, no, like, it's so unpredictable and you got to be I know that. So we need to be more methodical about, we can't decide based off of emotion and a knee jerk and something that looks sexy.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of, you have to have a foundation that enables you to go random.
Yes.
You have to have this foundation of fitness that incorporates all the elements of fitness: strength, power, speed, agility, endurance, endurance skills, swimming, running, rucking. All those things, mobility, flexibility, so, you can't get by a 12, 24, 52-week cycle and not have all of those somehow spaced into your program.
Agreed.
And yeah. So,
and that's that. I think that maybe that's where we as professionals need to clearly define what those things are. But it also depends, right?
Yeah.
Strength to me is a little bit different because of my capability to strength. Someone who's stronger than me, or weak. I don't say weaker, but not as proficient. So people say, I want to be stronger. Well, to get stronger, you have to lift or train a certain way. And they go, well, wait a minute. I don't like doing that. I don't want to lift heavier weights. Or I don't want to. Well, then you don't want to be stronger.
Right.
Like, oh, I want more endurance. Well, then you got to. We don't get smarter at English by working on geometry, right?
Yeah.
We can't. We don't. I want to get more power. Okay. Well, then you need to do some explosive movements. Right, but we think a lot of people go, oh, I don't want to be a power lifter. Not that power lifters aren't explosive, but that's absolute strength. It's a play on words. Power lifters be power, they are strong. Now Olympic weightlifters, although they're pretty strong, they're the pinnacle of power.
Power and technique.
Absolutely. It's skill acquisition.
Yeah.
A tremendous amount of power output and power management. Right. That's so people trying to educate them, they go, oh, wait a minute. Like, I just thought that getting strong, because we'll say, hey, a push-up is a test of upper body strength, but it's also can be a test of upper body strength endurance.
Yes.
And it should be, right? Yeah. So, and that's for us to help people clearly define on what they really, and that's why we, like in the first one we did is like, what do you do? We sit down with somebody and really go over what a goal is, what it should look like, and make sure that they're using the same verbiage as we are. And then that's the thing too is, it's tough to be very precise with somebody, especially over email or text and so forth too. Even just writing a program, like, really has to be, there's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah. So let's just do a little recap. We first talked about in this series about getting to the training, right? And that's a pretty specific test that you have to pass to get through the training or to the training, yes. Right? Whatever that is, PFT, pass test, PST, PFA, whatever initials they are, there's many of them out there. You have to pass a test to get to the training. Then once you get to the training, now you got to focus on the specifics. And those specifics, obviously, it depends on your athletic background, what you really need to focus on. But what would you say, and I'm turning this one over to you for the active duty, what would you say is what you needed the most as an operator at your last command that you were in for your just pure operational ability? What made you a better operator in the weight room or during your training cycles?
Yeah, I think for me and for the population that I worked with, well, because of all the time spent wearing body armor, all the time spent wearing body armor, plus being in a seated position from a Humvee to a helicopter, really, I really needed a strong posterior chain. I needed a strong back. I needed strong glutes, and I needed really, really mobile and strong hamstring, that hip movement. And not that my front side wasn't important, but again, we live in an anterior front side world. I needed that, I didn't, like in a teeter-totter, right? I didn't want all my weights forward, especially with my night vision. Everything's kind of forward. I needed a big anchor on the backside.
Okay.
And for me, that was very important. And but on the same time, what I could have used, not even just like on that clear defined, I need to be stronger, faster, whatever. I had the muscular endurance. I had the strength for the most part. What part of me was missing initially, and I learned probably a little bit too late, was how to better take care of myself after those missions. That was like the big thing. And for me, being as stubborn as I was, is that, and I was caught in the same sort of loop as everyone else. Like, I just must need to train a bit harder to prepare. And I think that I wasn't taking enough time off.
Yeah.
And I was overtraining too frequently.
Right.
And so I was pushing beyond my ability to recover at the rate that I was breaking myself down. And like, I've always liked to squat, and I've always liked this. And I think that especially when in deployment, a lot of times you're like, well, you're not going to go out on a mission for whatever reason. And you're just like, well, I'm going to train. And when I probably should have taken a day off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would say one of the most important things I do when I help coach the kids at the Naval Academy who are preparing for buds and their screening process that they have to go through each year is pulling the reins on all of them, because they will naturally be that overtrained athlete. And they're superb athletes, don't get me wrong. I mean,
Yes.
they're off the chart performers. They do really well, but their journey to buds, I am constantly pulling back.
Yeah.
I mean, we do hard workouts too, obviously, but 9 times out of 10, it's a little too hard. And I say, well, let's skip that one and do this instead, or let's take a day off.
Yeah.
That has been a big difference in I think my own, because I do the workouts with them, my own personal recovery time, which is a lot slower now compared to theirs.
Same,
But their performance as well, because when I first got there, I remember they things that they wanted to go do were just crazy. They'd go do the Marine Corps Marathon. That was a given. They go do the JFK 50 miler,
Yep.
And then they wonder why their, knees hurt for a month and their feet are broken because they have stress fractures in them. And, it's just too much going on. And like I said, if you're training for buds, you're probably in the mindset of like, I can't do enough to train.
Yeah.
But
that's the kind of people you want. I
Yes.
think the best way and that's why we do this. Like, if we can help educate them just a little bit, because we may not catch them the first 3 years in the teams, but after 3 or 4 years of deployment, you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. It starts then making sense. It's like a child, right? You tell your child.
Yeah.
Teachings don't tend to manifest themselves until they get into high school or college. I remember when my mom and dad told me.
Right.
Same thing. And because education is power. Education is super important. I can't stress that enough. And that was a thing, I think, for the last piece for me. I wish I probably could have continued to train with that certain amount of intensity, because intensity can be differently defined as well, if it's power, strength, and all those sort of things. If I had cycled my training a little bit more frequent, again, worked on a little bit more skill acquisition and power movements, and then did a little bit less strength endurance work and a little bit more absolute strength, and then cycled them through a little bit quicker, and then taking a week off here, or 2 days off there. And then I believe that I could have had a little bit more longevity in the way I felt, but I'm glad I'm 38 now, and I feel as good now as I ever have, but I'm really, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I'm really practice what I preach now, and I have now because of an injury. Like I said, I've separated shoulders, I've herniated discs, my hips are, all those bangs and scrapes. I find like guys that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s that look and feel good, and it's because we learned out of necessity.
Yeah.
We can't continue to grind the way we once did.
Yeah.
It catches up to us. So I think that that's a hard lesson to teach to folks who have not yet had the traumas.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I know after my trauma, I realized I needed to go back to what I had learned at the very beginning. And, when you're broken, I found, and people agree or disagree with me on this one, but I went back to old school Joe Weider's isolation exercises, because that's really all I could do.
Yeah.
I had to rebuild my muscle and joints one at a time.
Yeah.
Because it didn't allow me to do multi-joint movements.
I want to just steal your thunder for a second, but I can't. That's where I was going next.
Oh, okay.
is do not look at those really, we call them like bodybuilding or pump work, like where if we can get the muscle work in but take the stress off the joints, that in and itself can be a recovery day.
Yes.
We get so like, I got to lift heavier. Like, it's a tough one to sell to people. Yeah. Circuit training is very powerful for the benefit if we don't overreach too often. But I agree. Now, do I do the every day? No. But when my body is tired, but I'm like, man, I still really like to train. I'm enjoying what I do. Throttle way back, get my a lot of rest periods in there.
Yeah.
Get that principles. It's super beneficial. I wish I had started that way earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think our next phase of this series we'll do, after you're out of the military, and we'll try to gear it towards guys that have done 10, 15, 20 years active duty, and like, what can you do now to still do things and, still be very fit, capable, nursing injuries, working around injuries, and still be able to make progress into your 40s and 50s. I'm 48 now, and I created a program almost 20 years ago that I have been doing every year for 20 years almost. And it is a quarterly periodization program where I get all elements of fitness spread out throughout the year with a certain focus. So right now we're on a calisthenic running, swimming focus. So just during the swimmer, it's kind of like getting ripped up. We lose a lot of weight and you kind of feel pretty lean, and you go into the summer and it's fun.
I'm about to do that as well. I'm going to use a pool.
Yeah, exactly.
My group. Yeah, same.
Yep. And then in the fall, we start kind of mixing it all together. So we get almost a 50-50 split of weights to calisthenic ratio. And we start downsizing the downside of that bell curve on running, pick up the non-impact stuff. So we're running, we're swimming, we're biking or elliptical or rowing more, for non-impact cardio. And then during the winter, we really pull back on a lot of the running, and we just lift. And we get big, we get strong, we put on muscle mass. If any running that we're doing, it's just sprints, maybe 100-yard, 50-yard sprints. And then we come back around in the spring, and you start that 50-50 cycle again and start, tapering away from the weights, getting into some calisthenics. And then during the summer, it's calisthenics again. So it's just this little bell curve of going through the year. And it has made all the difference in the world for me. So like I said, it is a way to train. It is not the way to train. And, there's many different ways to create, tactical fitness programs and programs that can help you with longevity. And, I think you just have to be smart about it. And whether you're active duty or you're getting into it or whatever, just think about all the elements of fitness. And usually your program, 9 times out of 10, is neglecting one or two of those elements of fitness.
Agreed.
Right? If you find yourself neglecting some of those areas of fitness, you got to figure out a way how to put those in there.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why we tend to favor what we are good at or enjoy, which is fine. We don't want to omit ever what we're good at or enjoy. No. I think that's the big takeaway that you and I are trying to convey, is that when a program that anyone's going to create, make sure it has, again, like I said, know your author, right? So one of my know your author, and have that author or that program should be able to answer exactly what you just said. Well, okay, where's my strength phase? Where's my endurance phase? Where's my power phase? Where's my skill acquisition phase? Have I programmed in a couple recovery days? Totally off? Or does the program allow me to take days off? Or is it just like, no, you can't.
Right.
We can't be so rigid. Now, buds, we'll call it. We'll just say buds. It's rigid. Because it's a selection process or a deselection, depending on how you want to perceive it. But when you're training for that, you don't have to be rigid. We just got to accrue the capability to overcome that sort of rigidity.
Yeah. You know what we ought to do? This is a good one. We ought to do one on Bud's rumors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can't tell you how many rumors I answer about they're going to drown you and, in the pool.
Yeah.
They're going, you have to do 500 push-ups a day and 200
you have to hold your
pull-ups a
breath
day.
for like 6 minutes. And
Yeah.
People get, here's the other story. Like people ask all the time about like I got to do the 50 water under. No one failed that in my buds club.
No one failed in mine. We had 100 people pass that.
Yeah.
And we graduated with 28.
Yeah.
We had 100 people pass underwater swimming. Do you need to practice underwater swimming?
No.
I
mean, you can if you get some comfort to just like, I can swim.
Yeah.
Get comfortable. Yeah. So that would be kind of an interesting one for sure. But and now, granted, there is certainly some myth, like, you don't have to raise a puppy and kill it within the first phase or whatever, like kind of thing. Like, you got it. That's an urban legend. But I'm still surprised by the amount of misinformation that is perpetuated. But a lot of times it's from people that have never been there. Like you watch like the comment feeds on various things like, oh yeah, you have to do that. I'm like, no, you don't. Like that's not training at all.
Yeah.
And it's not we could, like you said, we could have the BUDS manual in front of us, the instructors have, and tell everybody about every single day what to expect. It still would not change it would not improve the percentage of completion.
No,
doesn't matter.
Not at all. Yeah,
not even a little. I would bet my life on that. Yep. I would bet my life savings on the fact that if we went for the next 3 weeks and spelled out every single day of every rep, it would not improve at all the completion process.
No. Well, you got anything to close on the active duty phase of tactical fitness?
No, I mean, my summary would be continue to be critical of how you're preparing for it. If you're talking about getting a general physical preparation phase, right? Like just to get generally fit. Okay. Once you get beyond I think once a person can physically complete a PST, even if it's kind of their own timeline, like they can do max pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, they can do a 1.5 mile run, and they can swim the 500, all kind of relatively. So once you can complete that, I would say that you're at the point of really focusing on programming, right? Yes. You're past general fitness. So be critical of how you're training, because and that's the thing is like people really are vigilant, or they're trying to be vigilant about best practices for preparation. So be critical. And if someone is not capable of defending the why, I'm not saying like, this is my program, you don't have to do if you don't want to, but just like, hey, these are my thoughts. This is what I'm trying to get to convey. And there's other realms you could get down. But I would say that we have all the answers. Now, can we put them in a very concise single program that fits everyone? No, not at all.
Yeah.
So, we are allowing this forum for people to ask questions. We are trying to eliminate people's excuses of not best preparation, best practices.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Yeah, I agree. So once again, we've discussed getting to the training, getting through the training, and now the active duty training, which, a big part of active duty training really is strength, backside strength, like you mentioned, recovery, maintenance, stress mitigation. So I think all of those kind of come into play into your active duty tactical fitness world, more so than, in the to and through phase. So when people ask us, hey, I see these Navy SEALs working out all the time with weights, I'm only, 180 pounds and getting ready for BUDS, what should I do? It's a little bit different. It's a triathlon at BUDS, with a lot of weights and weighted exercises so you still need some weight strength training, obviously, and to handle that, but it's a lot of cardio. It's a lot of cardio in there. There's a lot less cardio in the active duty world than in the to and through world.
For sure. Get through it. Right. Well, once you get through it, and that's the thing is, when you get through BUDS or any selection process, you get to really see behind the curtain and go, oh, this is what the job entails.
Right.
You'll see how that job and your lifestyle will best marry up, right? For me, I was a bigger, stronger guy, so the tasks that were placed upon me as an operator, like, hey, you're going to carry this, and you're going to go to this school, and you're going to do this because of what I liked and because of what my physical capabilities were.
Right.
Right. There are guys that are going to get through buds and show up to teams at 165 pounds. They're probably not going to be carrying the heavy weapons and so forth.
Right.
They're going to at some point to go, whoa, do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you good at it? Or are you not? But at the same time, you're going to see outliers. You're going to see light guys. You're going to see super heavy guys. You're going to see super heavy guys that are total freaks. They're like, how did that guy run? You're going to see a little guy. That guy can run like the wind. He can't run for crap.
Right. It happens.
It's everyone, right? And so don't look beyond training, okay? Get to the training, get through the training, and
there you go.
Find out where the job best suits you and your personality.
Yeah, exactly. Where you are on this timeline, there is a defined method to train.
Yes.
Right? If you're trying to get to the training, you know what you need to focus on.
Yes.
If you're trying to get through the training, the specifics are out there. I mean, and work on your weaknesses. Now, when you're active duty, so it's a different story, which we just discussed. So I love it. I think the 3 phases of tactical fitness are important for people to realize. And next time we talk, we'll talk about the 4th one, being what do you do when you're old and broken? And
we got plenty of information on that too.
Trying to rehab. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, man. Hey, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the conversation, and we'll do it again.
For sure.